Harry here and welcome back to Other Worlds Than These. Today's video is going to be my May wrap-up video. So this video is going to be my first ever wrap-up video and I have read 11 books this month. That is more than one every 3 days. I just don't have a life, really. Yes, I have read 11 books, 10 physical books, and 1 audiobook, but whether or not audiobooks count as reading is a huge debate in itself. That can be a separate video if you want. But I personally do believe that audiobooks are reading, and I have a very good reason for that. So I'm going to say that I have read 11 books this month. But for those of you who don't believe that audiobooks are reading, I've read 10 books this month. So these are all of the books that I've read this month. And it's very heavy, so I'm gonna put these down. So let's just get straight into the wrap-up. So the first book that I read in May was City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series, and it took me a few days, but it was so good. I loved this so much, I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads. And it is about a girl called Clary Frey who witnesses a murder and eventually becomes very intrigued in this group of demon hunters. So I absolutely loved this book. So after City of Bones, I read Night Shift by Stephen King. This is a short story collection, and some of these short stories are so good. They're absolutely brilliant, and then some of them just weren't that great. So this is a collection of stories that were all, I believe they were all published in men's magazines before they were put into this collection. So my favourites in here were Strawberry Spring and my favourite, I Know What You Need. These were absolutely brilliant, but I rated it 4 stars because there were some stories in this that weren't the best. The next book that I read was probably one of my favourite books that I read this month, and it is Shatter Me by Tahera Mafi. I loved this. I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads, and it is about a teenage girl called Juliet who has the power to kill people just by touching them. And she is taken captive by the re-establishment, which is sort of like a controlling government sort of thing. It's a dystopian and it's so good. I'm planning on reading Unravel Me in June, so I'm really looking forward to getting into that. But I love Shatter Me so much. I would highly recommend this. So next up is If It Bleeds by Stephen King. This is the collector's edition from W.H. Smith. I don't know if these are still in print. I assume that they are because it's still relatively new. It's been out for just over a month now. So this is a collection of 4 novellas and these are all brilliant. My favourite one is probably If It Bleeds, then Rat, then Mr. Harrigan's Phone, and then The Life of Chuck. All of these stories are really good. They're very creative as well, and If It Bleeds, the title story, is a sequel to The Outsider, which was very enjoyable. I loved returning to Holly Gibney and just her character and her world. It was brilliant. I think I rated this 4 stars on Goodreads, and yeah, it was a very enjoyable read. So the next book that I read isn't my typical book that I read. It is The Manifesto on How to Be Interesting by Holly Bourne. This is a YA about a girl called Bree who is not very popular in school, but one day she has a makeover and then she starts this blog about how to become interesting. It's called The Manifesto on How to Be Interesting, and she sort of makes friends with the popular girls as like an experiment on what you need to do to become popular in school, and it's very interesting. I love this because the author Holly Bourne is British and it's set in Britain, and you don't see many books that are massively popular that are set in Britain because most popular writers are American, so I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think I rated it 5 stars, and it's got sprayed edges, and if a book has got sprayed edges, I'm gonna read it. So next up is the first book in May that I didn't massively enjoy. It is Joyland by Stephen King. I gave this 3 stars on Goodreads, and it just wasn't the best. So this is about... I couldn't tell you. I read this in mid-May, and I knew while I was reading it that I wasn't going to remember much. It's just about like a carnival and ghosts and murder. That's all I can really say about it, really. It was just an average book, so I rated it 3 stars. Next up is another one of my favourite reads that I read in May, and it is City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. So I found this to be more enjoyable than City of Bones. I haven't read City of Glass yet, but that is the first book that I'm planning on reading in June. So this book just follows the characters from City of Bones, and I can't really say anything about this without giving many spoilers, so I'm not going to, but I rated this 5 stars as well. So the next book that I read was my audiobook, and it was On Writing by Stephen King. So this is a memoir / autobiography. So the first half of this book is Stephen King's experience as a writer, and the second half of this book is Stephen King's advice on writing. And this book is basically just the Bible for writers, so I gave it 5 stars. It was absolutely brilliant, and if you want to be a writer, you should definitely read this book. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to the audiobook because Stephen King himself narrated it, so it was more authentic, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've said that a lot in this video, but I did. I really enjoyed it. So the next book that I read was Pet Sematary by Stephen King. This is probably Stephen King's scariest and most disturbing book. I read this during my reading vlog, which took so long to edit, so please go watch that. I loved this book. This is a reread. I've read this twice now, and it is about a family that move into a new house, and on the property is a cemetery for pets. Wow. But beyond this pet cemetery, there is also a burial ground that the Micmac Indians used to use. And the concept is about how far someone would go to bring back a loved one who has died. And it's very distressing, very disturbing, very scary, but if you can handle that, read this. I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads, as I did last year, and it was just fantastic. So if you can handle the topic of death, grief, mourning, violence, and just downright terror, read this. The penultimate book that I read in May was Dark Tower 6, Song of Susanna. I loved this. I rated it 4 stars, I think, and it's just following the journey of the quartet in the Dark Tower series. But something I really enjoyed about this book, and I hope it isn't a spoiler, but Stephen King himself appears in this book, and it just turns this book into a drug trip, basically. And it's so trippy and insane, because Stephen King adds Stephen King into the Dark Tower universe and has Stephen King interact with the characters that Stephen King created. And it's just absolutely insane, and I absolutely loved it. So, saving the worst till last, the last book that I read in May was Rosemadder by Stephen King. I did not like this. I rated it 2 stars on Goodreads. So let me explain myself. So this book is about a woman called Rosie who has been in an abusive marriage for 14 years, and after her husband Norman just beats her to a pulp, she's had enough and she decides to leg it. So she steals his bank card and just gets out. She's just gone, and it's a massive power move. But her husband Norman is a cop. Cop? That's an American word. He is a police officer, and there we go, that's how we say it in Britain. He is very hard to take down because he himself is the police, so Rosie can't call the police because he is the police. The first 200 pages of this book I loved. If it was just the first 200 pages but escalated into something quite serious, I would have loved that. 5 stars easily. But this book ended up getting really weird and dumb and supernatural because there was this painting that Rosie found in a pawn shop, and she just immediately was drawn to the painting, and eventually she learns that she can literally climb into the painting. This is the weirdest thing I've ever read. It's just absolutely insane. I did not like it, so I rated it 2 stars. Okay, so that is my May wrap up. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Comment below some video suggestions you'd like to see next on the channel. Subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and turn on post notifications if you want to be notified whenever I upload a new video. My Goodreads link is in the description below, as is my Instagram, and I will see you for another video. Bye!